Hello, today I'm going to be carrying on with these sort of copper plated videos and brass plated videos I've been doing recently, where I've been trying to melt copper onto steel to create this copper plated finish. However, today I want to try and do it a little bit differently, and I want to cut veins into a leaf and then place copper into those veins and try and melt the copper into them. So we have a contrast between a copper vein and a steel sort of background of a leaf. I've no idea if this is going to work. I've never tried this before. It's just an idea in my head. Hopefully it's going to work. Let's just have a good crack at it. I should mention that this is something that I saw Stephen Lunn do at the Yorkshire Show. He's a great smith from the north east of England, and he melted copper onto these sort of seaweed sculptures, and he would have little blobs of copper around, which is still something that I want to do, as that was what I was aiming to do in the other video that I did, but I ended up copper plating the entire thing. So I'm going to revisit that at some point. In this video, I want to try and put copper in the veins of a leaf. We'll start off just like you would any other leaf, forging a short taper on the end of the bar, which you can then isolate off and then spread. Now on to spreading the material for the leaf. Now it's on to punching the veins. Unfortunately, I melted the first leaf off, so I just quickly made a new one. The next step is trying to apply the copper. I have these really thin strips, which I think the thinner the better, really, so it melts quicker and more easily, as otherwise you might burn the leaf off before the copper melts. And so you can see I've got to cut them up, and then they're all going to go onto each of these vein marks, which we've marked out with the chisel, so they can just slide in there, put that in the fire and try and melt the copper on. Usually I would preheat the steel to sort of a red and then put the copper on. However, because there's so much copper on this piece and it's very fiddly to get it all into the veins, I've done it cold, as if I think I did it hot, I would either end up burning my fingers or just losing the heat out of the piece completely. So hopefully this doesn't affect it too much and we can still bring the copper up to melting temperature without burning the thin steel of the leaf. But I don't know, I'm making it up as usual. It's just an experiment. Let's see if it's going to work. Hopefully it will. When the steel's in the fire, I'll be pinching some flux and just chucking it on. So hopefully the flux will just help the copper melt on and get a good contacting adhesion, I don't know if that's the right word, to the steel, so it doesn't just fall off when we wire brush it after. The leaf is going on, just on top of the fire, just resting on the coals. So that was a complete failure, other than a little tiny droplet on one vein, the rest of them just fell off. The problem was that the ones that were up here were a lot smaller, and so they just melted, completely melted first, and then none of the others were hot enough, and so none of the others were melting. So I think this time, if I have that section just out of the fire, so we heat the back section first, because that's where all the bigger bits of copper are. So hopefully, if they begin to melt first, then we can pull it gradually a little bit more into the fire, so the end then heats up and melts. At least that's my thinking. Let's have a go. That's looking better than the last one. Unfortunately, that one got a little bit too hot and sort of melted back, but hopefully they're stuck on. I'll give it a wire brush and we can see if it's worked. Well, that didn't work either. Let's try again. Third try lucky. This time I'm just going to try and melt the copper. So hopefully, rather than copper plating the entire thing, the copper will run down into the veins, as I want that contrast between the steel and the copper. Let's give it a go. We got it way too hot that time. I think I've actually melted through it. You can see there. Ah well. I'll give it a wire brush anyway. You can see what's actually happened. Well, bit of a failure this one. Just got too hot, I think, and then just melted straight through all of these chisel marks. Copper didn't even stick to it this time, which is odd. I just have no idea how I do this, really. It seems to be a guessing game. So unfortunately that didn't quite go to plan, as I ended up just completely melting it off and ruining the entire thing. So this is another failure video. I want to try and revisit this at some point. I think the problem was coming from, firstly, on the first one, it was the heat was going into the very tip of the leaf, and that was heating up really fast and then melting the copper there, but not melting the copper towards the back of the leaf, as there's a larger volume there. And so it was then the copper at the end was melting off and just running away, and the copper at the back wasn't hot enough, so we weren't getting a good adhesion there. So on the second one, I tried to address that, however, it didn't work. And then on the third one, again, I tried to address that and just got it really hot so that all the copper would melt, but then I melted straight through the chisel marks on the veins of the leaf, and then the leaf just got completely destroyed. So I think I need to do a little bit more thinking and experimenting on my own off camera with this until I can get a technique which actually gives us some good results. So hopefully I will do another video on this at some point and revisit this, as this is something that I find really interesting, trying to put two materials together in a forge just by melting the copper onto steel or melting brass onto steel, something like that. So there are a couple of other videos which I'll put around somewhere probably if you want to see me do a successful one of these. But anyway, thank you for watching this video. Sorry I couldn't be a better blacksmith, and I'll see you on the next one.